We're going to go ahead and get started. Next up, we have Nicaise Ishimwe. Hi. She's a technical program manager from Amazon with an extensive background in quality. And she works here in Seattle on the Alexa team, so please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for introducing me. Is this working? Do you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think we can get started. So, hey, everyone. So it's a pleasure for me to be here today to talk about this important topic, for me at least, and I hope that it will be for you as well. So thank you all for choosing to join this session. So today we are going to unpack one of the most important and challenge that we sometimes get in product development and in QA, which is how do we balance quality, speed, and risk without compromise. And more importantly, I would like to see how we can come up with a model or a way that can help us balance this risk correctly. So think about the last time you shipped a product, for example, in production, but you had something wrong happening. Was it because you prioritized speed over quality, or was it because you had poor visibility in the risk that was involved? So by the end of this session, I'm hoping that we can derive an actionable framework that we can use basically to derive any ways to maximize quality efficiency with the lean thinking. And I will talk about what that lean thinking is. So let's dive into it and see how to make QA fast, make QA resilient, failure resilient, and do it in a way that is optimal. So quick introduction about me. So I'm Nicaise Ishimwe. I'm a tech program manager at Amazon, and I'm currently working on, just recently from the last few months, on production testing. And before that, I worked in Alexa as a quality assurance engineer, and I've been working in the QA space for the last almost 10 years on smart mobility solutions or railway communications in the past. And if there's one valuable lessons that I've learned as part of this process is that in my QA journey is really to learn how to zoom out. When I started, I was always focused on test execution, and it's all about running tests. But if there's something that I learned is that we need to approach QA not just as a gate or a way to, to check whether things are working, but looking at the bigger picture, at what impact it can make at organizational level. And that's why applying lean thinking, I felt would be a good topic to discuss as part of this session. So what will we be covering today? So we'll start with the why. Understanding why thinking lean in a lean way works is something that is really needed more than ever in the QA world currently. And secondly, we will look at what key pillars from the lean methodologies that we can use to gain that balance between speed, quality, and risk. And then finally, I would like us to walk away with an understanding of the how we can bring that lean mindset in our teams and in the ways that we work every day. So with potentially a suggested roadmap to apply from today. So we can get started, and I would love this session to be interactive. As I'm saying, this is just based on my journey, which is a humble journey, if I can say so. So the idea is also to get insights from the audience and make it as interactive as possible. So if you have an input, feel free to raise your hand and let me know. And there will be a prize for the one who is the most interactive at the end. So let's get started. So let's take a moment to explore what are lean strategies and why they matter in QA. But first, I would like to see what does lean mean to you? Like just in a single word, what do you think lean means? Yes? Fun?
Thin.
Oh, thin, yes.
Thin, not wasteful.
Not wasteful, yes.
Not overly complicated.
Not overly complicated, definitely. Efficient, yes. Reliable, I agree. Smooth, I love that, yeah. Less and
More.
yes, true. Okay, I think that kind of summarizes pretty much what it is. So for some, it means efficiency. It can be focus, it can be flow, it can be even what we were saying about not wasting, right? And it's all that it means, basically. It's doing what matters and eliminating what doesn't matter. And linking to what we were talking about, quality, risk, and speed, we need to keep that in mind. So eliminating what doesn't matter, but keeping the quality in mind. So let's look at what happens when QA isn't good enough. When QA isn't good enough, or when we treat it as just good enough, we are inviting risk in the picture. And when we treat QA as an afterthought, or just as a checklist, we are inviting little fires everywhere. We are inviting fragile systems. We are inviting customer frustration. So there could be so many consequences. And there are a few examples here of companies that just had major failures. So for example, Knight Capital lost 460 million in 40 minutes when one of their servers, they were doing a system upgrade, and just that server missed an upgrade, and it ran an older code, and this impacted this huge amount of loss. So it's so big. TCB, for example, locked out 1.9 million users. This is a bank during a system migration because testing wasn't done properly, or because testing was done, but we didn't estimate how much the risk would be. So these failures are not just technical failures. There are signs that testing can be misaligned with the business risk or the priority. And we really need to make sure that we are not just focusing on testing for testing or maintaining quality, but we look at the bigger picture. What is it that we are testing, and how is it going to matter for customers? So when QA doesn't go well, or where it isn't focused well enough, this can cost us trust, it can cost us business reputation, it can cost us customer value. So that's why lean matters, and it's really not about cutting tests just for the sake of cutting tests, but it's really about sharpening our focus so that we can build quality where it's needed. So why our traditional QA methods are not lean enough, in my opinion. So in today's world, we are expected to build faster, to ship even faster, and to iterate, right? Especially with the advances of AI, now development can be done so fast. And traditional QA methods where I could go and start creating a QA strategy, start drafting the tests, we can't keep up with that. We need to be able to advance at a high speed. But also our QA strategies haven't kept pace, if I can say so. So they can be still fragmented. So from my experience, sometimes we could be looking at just that single feature or that single program that is launching. But have we looked at the whole organizational business proposition and looked at the different units that we have and looked at how the different pieces of QA can be prioritized together? And then also there's something that is of a concern, that we still have QA as a single job. So it's the QA team's job to make sure that things are working. Whereas it should be a mindset that every single person, from the design to the development to the marketing, should have in mind. So really making sure that everyone is an owner and knows how that quality assurance can be done. So that's what we are trying to achieve. So we need a QA quality assurance strategy that is value-driven, risk-informed, and strategically aligned with the business goals. So that's why we are talking about lean here. And does anyone know where lean methodologies came from? Or have some ideas? Sorry? Toyota, yeah. Japan, definitely. I mean, there are pieces of it that came from different places, but we can say that the big moments when the lean methodology started being adopted much often was in Japan in around the years 1940s. So did you know that behind Japan's success, for example, in the manufacturing industry, there's a combination of multiple factors. It's not only about smart engineering, it's not about just reliability and making sure that all the pieces are built correctly, but there's a deep commitment to lean principles. And Japan faced a time where they were trying to compete with Americans and others in terms of car manufacturing, but they couldn't keep up, or they couldn't do it as fast as they would have wanted on volume. So instead, they looked at how can we improve every single piece of our manufacturing process so that we can move faster. So they built what became Toyota Production System that you mentioned, which is a model that is focused on eliminating waste. So as you mentioned, waste is the key thing in lean, in all forms. So any waste that is done along the manufacturing line. And then improving the flow. So you want things to move smoothly, as you mentioned, Esperanza, through continuous improvement. And also, they have this thinking of producing only what is needed, when it's needed, and just in time. So there's something about really refocusing effort where it needs to be and when it needs to be there. And that philosophy is what we call lean, and that's why I feel it should be integrated in anything that we do, not only QA or manufacturing, but it could be applied here quite interestingly. So let's look at some of the lean pillars, which you might have mentioned, so I'm going to be faster on this one. So the lean secret sauce basically is about, and I hope you can see that. So it's about first delighting the customer, right? Killing the waste or reducing costs or something. If our QA testing is taking ages and can't keep up with delivery, that needs to be, how do you say, optimized. Failing smarter. Now, it's not about not failing, because we always fail, but knowing how to fix quickly, preventing, fixing, preventing, or having a remediation strategy, and making sure that that doesn't happen again, right? And also always improving as part of the process. So having mechanism for that. So the lean thinking starts with creating capacity. So sometimes we say we are overloaded, we have a lot of things to test, or we have a lot of things to follow up, or we can't keep up with delivering. But we need to find ways to create that time to rethink how we can create capacity or space or time to optimize what we are doing. Then improving the flow, driving continuous improvement while taking a whole system view. So we need to look at this from an organization standpoint and deeply understand how this impacts the customer. So customer obsession or customer prioritization will still become the priority or the main reason we will work on that. So let's apply this then to QA. So for me, in my opinion, and I feel like it came from different perspectives come differently. So we are looking at testing the right aspects. So applying that lens where we say it's not about testing more or testing less, but testing what matters, what will really make our system drive value. And we are looking also testing in the right amount, because you may say, traditionally, for me at least, I would be like, I want to make sure that every single aspect is covered. Coverage is very important to me. And it took me time to be like, yes, coverage is needed, but what is the right balance to make sure that not only over-testing, or I may be over-testing, but it may be good, but like if I'm spending hours on that test, it doesn't bring value. And then also, running the tests at the right moment. So if you see issues in this step, we need to pause and ask ourselves a question. Where did things fail, and could we have caught these defects earlier? So really shifting left, but also even left here to be able to see how we can, improve. And then also the intent matters. If you are testing just to check a box, then we are missing the point, right? So we test to protect the customer value. I would love to see actually every tester or every, driving a culture where every person who works on something, before even I start developing that line of code or that test, asking myself, where is my customer gonna be delighted? And really deriving my testing from there. And then, so here are some strategies that I feel that we could apply as part of that, applying that lean thinking in QA. So teams should map their QA processes to understand what adds value, what doesn't, what introduces risk or misses risk, and also what slows us down as part of the process. So insights can be used. So when we map our processes, those insights can be consolidated together, and then at an org level, at the team level, we can then see where are we allocating resources and then adjust accordingly. And also we need to promote that org level QA lens. I would love to see QA teams actually presenting their approaches to developers, to designers, so that they can integrate some of those principles in their own work. That will help also, advance. But also bringing QA metrics in those business review meetings, so business level insights, so that we can make sure that QA has a place as well in the organization. So fostering that QA responsible culture from the very beginning. And then we need to look at optimization, flow optimization. We tend to focus only on automation. Let's automate. But are there areas of bottlenecks where we need to remove? Are there areas where we might be duplicating effort that we don't need to? Or are there areas where we can accelerate what is being done? We sometimes do just automation, but there are probably ways to augment that automation, especially now with the tools that we have. I came just from a presentation on Amazon Nova, and it's incredible to see now that you can use a prompt to basically create the whole flow of the testing that you would have taken time to write. So looking even higher, how can I accelerate the value? And then also guide teams to focus on what drives value. Look at the bigger picture, smart tooling, not only looking at the feature level, but when I'm automating that feature, can I see how this can benefit the whole list of features that we automate or other teams are around? And also influencing a culture of continuous improvement. And that's what I feel is key as well, because we need to make sure that we have not only defect-based metrics, right? Sometimes we are like, the target is to have no blocker escapees by this time, but is that enough? We need to tie this to the organizational value and the customer value. So looking at aspects as like objectives and key results, quality KPIs, or beyond quality KPIs, we can look at behavior KPIs as well. So I'm proposing a guiding framework, and that's where I wanted it to be interactive as well. So from your perspective, looking at this, we can come up together with key pillars that we can use to make sure that our mindset at an organization level applies lean quality assurance. This is what I think, and we can iterate. So first, I feel like we need to focus on a value and risk-informed quality strategy. So making sure that those two key, value and risk, are always in our mind in whatever we do. First, second one, innovation-powered augmented automation that I just talked about. And then built-in responsible quality, that we need to make sure that even not in our development, in our design, we have ways to have quality metrics. And I don't know if it's something some organizations have that, but like if we could have ways to measure the quality even at requirement level, that would be great. And then having preventive and proactive ways to continually improve and to be resilient to failures. So from your perspective, and even before I go into these ones, do you see any other key pillars that should be added here? Any other key important thing that may be missing when we say we want to optimize? And we can discuss along as we look at the different pillars. But I wanted just to share, I won't spend much time on this, a few. So when we talk about lean methodologies, there are so many tools and frameworks that are proposed as part of lean principles that can be applied. So when you talk about, for example, value, right? You can do a value stream mapping, which is mainly a tool that you can use to break down your whole process, and it can be a testing process, a development process, or a reporting process, and really appending a value and making sure that you know how things flow on that flow. We have what we call failure mode analysis, effect analysis. So it's not only about knowing our top category of issues, right? But knowing what is the associated likelihood, what is the associated risk, impact to the customer, and what is the mitigation strategy for that failure, and by when you need to have prevented it from flowing again in your system. You can do some Pareto prioritization. So I added some links, but there is the Six Sigma, which is the organization that compiles all these tools, can help you see what are some of the tools applicable to each of the scenarios. And when we are talking about automation, right? Japanese, for example, have this, with this AI, the jidoka. Jidokas are more a tool where you make sure that when you see an issue in the process, you stop, you pause, and you don't move until you found a solution to mitigate it. So preventing issues, not only saying, oh, we have a plan to fix this, but making sure that it's fixed. And then we have aspects like, AA agents and so on that are coming up. So when talking about a QA of accountability, a culture of accountability, so we talked about OKRs, KPIs, but you can also have what you call statistical process control, which is like if your process produces a metric and you have a limit or like a stage in which it should be, measuring statistically over time how tightly do you stay in that limit or whether things evolve or not. So these are some tools that you can use, even when you are looking at preventing issues, making sure that you do error proofing, kaizens, where you bring all teams to discuss and see how you can fix issues together. So I think there are some emerging QA concepts that align with this lean thinking, but I think as a group, we could come up with other potential strategies, given that the goal or the lean thinking is really about eliminating waste, having things flow flawlessly, accelerating delivery, and continually improving. So I'm going to pause here and make sure that I have all your inputs, and then we can conclude the session with questions. Yeah. So any key pillars or any other aspects you feel should be here?
What about engineering excellence?
Engineering excellence. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so I think it's all about preventing issues. So I think we could easily bring this in the quality strategy aspect here, value and risk informed. Because if we have risks, when we talk about bugs, we talk about the fact that if they happen later on, the cost is gonna be high, right? So that's the risk. We have a risk of having a higher cost later on. So let's have a quality that analyzes that risks and makes sure that it's there. But I agree we should have something more engineering focused. So engineering excellence would be one. Yeah. Yes.
What about the customer feedback loop? Like, how do we know
Mm-hmm.
what the customer said and that they're delighted or not?
Yes, yeah, that's a key one, and I think we should add it there, right? So we should have customer focus, and potentially with how do we take those anecdotes, metrics, and make sure that they loop in the process. Very good, yeah. Anything else? Okay, I think we can conclude then. So, organizations that adopted a lean thinking have reaped success, right? So these are a couple examples, right? We talked about Toyota, we talked about Microsoft AIOps, using AI now to accelerate incident resolution and detection. Microsoft is doing some initiatives to push things left, and there are many organizations doing that, but really thinking further. So a challenge that I can give you to you as leaders, right? And everyone is leader in their own way, is to see how can you influence a lean thinking in your organization going forward, if you're not already doing so. And really influencing that QA ownership mindset, right? But also you can drive a campaign to map the value. Where do we see waste? Where are we spending more time that we shouldn't? Where are we doing something that doesn't bring value ultimately? And then you can follow up with a hackathon to work on the process improvements that you've identified, and then track them. And then you can have a resiliency game day where you can try to break your system and see if things, where things are going wrong. And then you need to iterate. So this needs to become a culture. And then we add on that customer obsession, that engineering operational excellence to make it perfect. So I would pause there. I will leave this link if you have any feedback, but I would love to take any other insights, any questions that you might have regarding this topic. Yes. Barely, but yeah. That's fine.
Okay, I'll yell. So when you're convincing teams to use this lean framework, I noticed that you're kind of looking at the beginning with the monetization and looking at how much money people lost to not be doing this kind of stuff. Is it, do you find that the negative messaging works better, or you'll get more efficiency messaging works better? Because I'm in digital accessibility and like the lawsuit action and the negative and upfront, like, so Target Corporation lost $6 million in a class action settlement because they were discriminating against people with disabilities, like blind users, but so that's the negative message, right?
Yes.
So do you find the negative message resonates better, or the positive message? Does it depend on the person? Like, what do you
Yeah.
personally find a way better?
I think actually that, and probably that's a miss on my part to not talk about other types of entitlements that you can use to bring value. I feel like when it goes to teams, right, and to people that you're working with, first you need to start with what will they benefit them specifically from this, right? Because by focusing on what the value is for the organization, and which ultimately should be tied to the customer and not to the benefits. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, that tends to be always the money. But I think the starting point will be the customer value, and then go to your team and be like, this is what we gain from doing this. Those hours you were spending on the weekend trying to fix an issue that broke in production, you're not going to be doing that if you have a system that, since the very beginning, integrates that lean thinking inside. So you need to look at the entitlement that the team is getting and use that as a way to influence it. But I would also say that this is more of a culture. I wouldn't go with like, this is a tool, you need to start using this. I think it's something you build over time, right? And you can start with simply continuous improvement. We need to improve continually, because if you're seeing issues repeating all the time, it doesn't make sense. What can we improve? And people will resonate with that because by nature as humans, we want to always go forward, right? So I would say that I would start with the entitlement that the team itself would benefit from. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the approach that I take.
Yeah, I think I fixed it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Let me read this so everybody can hear. I think it fell asleep.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's much better. So with the QA's framework as well, I wonder, does that incorporate fit, form, and function, or is that mostly like the functionality test? Like, what parts of QA does it apply to? Because,
Yeah.
you know, accessibility, security, globalization, localization, like that, I feel like it should apply to that. So I don't know if you explicitly put that in the framework or you say it applies to that.
No, this applies to quality assurance in general, right? And quality assurance encompasses all that. For me, I feel like there's no, if you have good functional testing, but you don't have any accessibility, it would take one incident for your reputation or your value to be broken, right? So we really need to make sure that each pillar of QA, of testing, is included in this framework. And it's a good suggestion to make sure that that is there. Yes. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I completely missed the, yes, yeah.
And this works.
How are we doing on time? Any more questions? Yes.
Hi. So you recently changed teams, right, from a QA team to now being part of the product team, right? So I wanted to ask, like, how do you do like personally influence quality being now on the product side? Like, having worked on QA for so many years, like, are there any key points that you can maybe share on how do you influence quality across your new organization, maybe?
Yes, yeah. So I think for me it was an interesting change because in a way, this is a space I wanted to be in, but I was leaning towards product management instead of program management. But what I didn't mention is that actually my program management role is on satellite testing, which is, in a way, we are still doing the testing principles. But the key is that now I'm moving from like purely software testing, where we have more techniques like those shift left or engineering excellence, which in a way are a little bit different from what we do in manufacturing. So I think what has helped for me is talking even like when we have an issue, just pausing and being like, what has worked for me in my previous type of role that could be applied here, even if, I wouldn't have thought it would work. And the same when I started looking at these lean methodologies, because they are heavily used in manufacturing, I was like, wait, this can apply a lot in my software QA testing approach. So it's more about really looking at the problem and having that more open, bigger picture of being like, this work there, how can we customize it to work it in this space as well? Yeah. Hope that responds to the question.
We have time for maybe one more.
Yes, I think we would. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? This will be our last one.
Sorry?
So from your perspective, what is the most critical KPI you use to influence teams? Because what is the most critical KPI
Yes.
that you use to influence teams so you can change the culture, right? Because you can always talk and you can always send emails and you can always do all of that.
Yes.
But that's not scalable, and sometimes
Yes.
you have to show numbers. So if you can give me maybe one or two KPIs that you've seen in your experience?
Yes.
They work to influence people.
Yes. To influence people, that's a good question, actually. I had one that came to mind immediately, but I was like, did it influence people? Yes. But I think, so for me, there are a couple that worked, at least I used to focus on looking at how much testing we are doing and whether we are catching defects there. And I used to have a KPI that was mainly related to how many critical blocker bugs that we have, and shifting to looking at this from a OKR perspective. And by that, what I mean is that suddenly I got an opportunity to own a goal and to see how, instead of defining a KPI, I can tie it to the organizational goal. So by increasing or diminishing by 10% every month my defect rate, then this is helping achieve this other KPI that we have at an org level. So I think that was one of the things that has helped for me. And the other one that I have from a recent experience is more related to customer value. And this is more related how many stakeholders give positive feedback and reviews on presentations that we do that stem from quality and testing, right? Which is something usually, because it's more qualitative, I wouldn't have considered as a KPI, but now I'm kind of getting that mindset of saying, how can I capture that as a metric that I can use for improvement? And be like, for example, if X stakeholders from this category were unsatisfied last month, how is it like this month and continuously? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's all.
Can we please get a round of applause for Nicaise?
Thank you all for the